Uber, when you get that receipt every time you get out of an Uber ride, or you make a reservation at Airbnb and they send you a confirmation, or you do date night and they remind you, hey, you've got a reservation for 2 at 7 o'clock at this restaurant in town. All of those are examples of where somebody is using Sendgrid to send automated email communication. So that's where we got started. We've now expanded the portfolio from the automated emails onto the marketing side, the promotional emails, because all of our customers said, well, we start with you on day 0 for this automated email plugged into the back of my application, but I still have to do this promotional email. I want to do a welcome series. I have a product update, a newsletter, weekly or monthly. I want to offer a special discount for folks to re-engage, drive retention, and so we've now built that onto the platform as well. We're sending now, it's remarkable how fast this grows. Now we're at 35 billion emails a month. It's just extraordinary scale with customers across 100 different countries around the world. The internet is our distribution channel. It's extraordinary. We have one salesperson that we just hired in London as of 3 months ago. For the preceding 8 years, we had nobody around, and yet 100 customers in 100 countries around the world coming to solve their problem using Sendgrid. So it's a remarkable business. But that's not what you came for. What you wanted to hear about was, so that history, like how did we, and that I share that with you mostly just to establish some credibility that we've actually done some extraordinary things as a company, as a team, and we've learned some hard-fought lessons along the way. It was never easy. By the way, success is never a straight line. It's always bumpy. But we did take away some insights that hopefully are helpful to you all as you guys continue on your journey as well. So I'll share with you 5. The first one, focusing on in the SaaS model. Anybody ever hear of this notion of we got to get to product market fit? I talk to VCs. I'll ask you, have you found product market fit yet? Has anybody heard that phrase? Mark Andreessen's. You got to product market fit's great. It's a great concept. It basically defines nirvana, though. When you get to product market fit, you've gotten to a stage where you have found this incredible problem that is hugely valuable to solve, that everyone that has your problem wants to come and use your thing to go solve, and it's all you can do to just keep up with the demand. That's when you've found product market fit. And you can size it, and you can say, oh, the TAM for this, the target addressable market is X billions of dollars, and you've gotten that far on the journey. I don't know about most of you. The last startup I did before Sendgrid was, eight folks in a garage. When you're at that stage, product market fit feels like it's in like a different universe. You're a long way from, trying to figure out P times Q, like how many people and what's that's a long ways away when you're just getting started. And so one suggestion for you is do what Sendgrid did and look at an intermediate point on the horizon. Keep product market fit ultimately on the horizon, but halfway there's something called product buyer fit that I'd like to describe to you, which is where you have determined this specific problem for a particular persona. Like be very, very intentional and specific about who is the user that I am solving a problem for, and how deeply do I understand their problem? Like, have I talked to 50 of them? Not companies, people, individuals. So if it's a product manager, if it's, in our case, it was a developer. And our team got to know developers deeply and figured out everything about our model was where do we go find them? How do we make sure they know about us? How do we help them? How do we serve them? It helped, obviously, that we had 3 founders who were all developers, but every person that joined the company had to go and learn that persona deeply. And if you can do that and you get to product buyer fit, and you can find somebody, by the way, who not only has a problem that you can solve, that you understand deeply, and who can pay for it. That last part's kind of important. You really start to build something special. So think about, go back, Sendgrid's obviously a nice small example of this. A little startup called Salesforce.com did this back in the mid to late 90s. And I don't know if anybody remembers them. They were not an enterprise shop. They sold reps a tool that it wasn't CRM back then, it was called SFA, Salesforce Automation. It helped an individual rep manage their contacts and figure out who I should be focusing my time on and track my conversations. That's all it did. But then they got so much engagement from that community that they could then call into the company and say, hey, by the way, did you know that 38 of your sales reps are using our tool? Maybe we could do a deal with you as a business instead of as the individual persona. But they picked this intermediate point on the destination to product market fit and said, I'm going to go deep here. And so anyways, that was one lesson that has been immensely helpful to us. May or may not be appropriate for your business, but if it is, I would strongly encourage you to go deep on it. The second one, again, falls in line with everything else I say. You're going to be like, well, duh. Nothing insightful here. But honestly, I honestly find that the greatest insights are the simplest and most obvious of truths. And this one, listen to your customer really deeply. And we all say, well, yeah, of course I listen to my customers. We'll go out of business if we can't close more deals and so on. No, I mean, truly think about how intentional do we operate as a team, as a unit, as an entrepreneurial business to bring in the voice of the customer. What are all the touch points? How am I informing the next set of things that we go do? And I'll give you an example in the case of Sendgrid, because the early team, actually Jim, who is up here, and the founding management team of Sendgrid were so intentional about this and did such a great job that they realized what you would expect to go do as a SaaS company, a software company, is go build a bunch of cool new features, right? That's not what they did. Because they were so because that's what, by the way, if you have a technology-driven company, they're all going to want to go build the next cool set of features. And they didn't, because they were listening to customers so deeply via their NPS surveys. They would close the loop. We had a customer advisory board. You go through, and by the way, every person on our executive team has to respond personally, has to pick up the phone and call people that are both promoters and detractors to hear firsthand. What are they saying? What are they asking us to go do? We no longer, customer validation in our product management process, we call it the Sendgrid way. We do not allow hands-on keyboards of a developer writing code until we have validated deeply and methodically. We have templates you have to fill out and to ensure that we have asked all the right questions about the customer's pain point that we are trying to solve, which is radically different than what we did in the early years of the company. But we do that so intentionally that when we did that, we heard from all of them what they actually wanted was somebody to pick up the phone and call. The developers wanted a support line. They wanted to talk to email ninjas that could help explain this deliverability problem to them, because it was just really esoteric and complicated. And so instead of the first S in SaaS, the software part of software as a service, we focused on the second one. And we built an incredible organization around technical support, email delivery, email deliverability consultants, community. We set up a bunch of what we call community evangelists that would go to hackathons and be out with the developers to be there to answer their questions. We invested very, very, very modestly in sales and very modestly in new engineering headcount for a long time, because we were very intently listening to our customers. And so while it may sound very high level and superficial, if you take it down to the nth degree and say, really, what am I doing? How am I bringing the voice of the customer in? I guarantee you will actually do things differently than you think you will. It's not about like, I believe, I have a vision that if I solve this problem in this way, they're going to love it. Go validate that. Go talk to 30 or 40 or 50 individuals of those buyers that we were talking about before you get hands-on keyboards. Another great challenge that we learned along the way, when your company starts taking off, let's hope you get to product buyer fit, you're deeply listening to your customers, things are rolling, you're going to need a lot of people. You got to start hiring. Hiring is very difficult. Most cultures, I think, are completely screwed up when it comes to the way they approach recruiting. Recruiting is viewed as this obligation. It's a task. It's this extra thing that just fell on my plate. And I have my plate already overflowing. I don't have time to go interview for 7 hours tomorrow or this week. What do you mean? And the way you've got to flip the orientation and the headset of every person in your company is that recruiting is a privilege. It is a privilege. You should only be putting your absolute best and brightest and those who best represent the values of your company in front of candidates. Because the most important decision you will make as an entrepreneur or founder or as a CEO leader every single week, I guarantee you, is who did you just offer the next seat to? At Sendgrid, we give out hoodies. Our blue Sendgrid hoodies are only given to new employees. We give out 10,000 Sendgrid t-shirts a year all over the world, but the hoodies are prized. So we often say, like, who we are giving the next hoodie to is the most important decision we're making every week. So as an example, one of the things that we did when I joined, I asked, who is allowed to interview? Because the headset of our company at that point really was, well, I'm the hiring manager. I'm waiting for recruiting to give me a stack of resumes. I'm like, no, we're not in the right headspace around recruiting being a privilege. The hiring manager, that is part of their job. If you are a manager, part of your job is, can you attract, develop, and retain great talent? If you don't think that is at least half or more of your job, you're not in the right headspace. And they thought of it as this obligation of, I have all this other stuff on my plate. I'm like, no. It is a privilege. It should be an honor to get to interview because you get to tell our story to these candidates coming in, and we want them to be super compelled by this extraordinary little company that we're building and get them to join. And so we actually went and took, just as, again, to make it tangible for you, I'd encourage you to go back and think about, who do I allow to interview? And by and large, divide by 2. Divide by 2. Raise the bar on the people you allow to interview, and I guarantee you will raise your own bar of the people that come in, and you'll change the headset of the employees and your teammates about how critical it is to do world-class recruiting, because that's what builds your company. And you know, we're not breaking ground here in some unique way. Anybody interested in the concept, you should go read about Amazon's bar raiser program that they've had in place for a long, long time. It's incredibly successful. The bar raiser literally gets the opportunity to say, nope. There has to be a bar raiser on every interview slate. If there are 5 people interviewing a candidate, one of them has to be one of those bar raisers, and they get veto power over Bezos himself if required. All right, next one. Let me see if I can get that slide. Culture and being intentional. I talked a lot about this this morning for any of you who got to listen in on our breakfast conversation. I just believe it's never too early to focus on this, and being super intentional about the kind of values that you want to underpin your culture is mission critical every bit as much as, do I have enough cash in the bank to build this business? I really believe that deeply. Like, not just spin, not just that's the right thing to say, deeply. At Sendgrid, these 4 H's are how we hire people, it's how we promote people, we celebrate peer-nominated awards against that culture. And here's the thing that I would leave you with. When you think about the culture you're trying to define for your own venture or startup or business, ensure that it has some edge to it, that not everybody would want to come work for you. Like, this culture isn't motherhood and apple pie. It's not for everybody. I love Sendgrid's culture. It's the reason I joined the company, was because I often say I fell in love with the company with head and heart, and it was the heart part that actually led me to take the job. And it was entirely because, for me, I resonated deeply with the 4-H values. But by the way, I know dozens and dozens and dozens of extraordinarily talented software professionals for whom Sendgrid would be their 7th hell. They would hate it. Absolutely hate it. And it's not because they're not good. They're awesome. They're awesome. But by the way, like, our humble H would drive a whole set of people I know nuts. And it's not because they're not good, it's just not for them. And the whole point is, you got this huge, vast talent pool. You are not trying to hire the entire world. You're trying to hire a small set of like-minded and like-valued people that will go on the mission together, that will go take the hill together. And so make it edge. It's got to have some edge. It can't be for everyone. And so if you think through your value system, make sure that it's got some edge. Think through that. By the way, one other thing on the being intentional of the culture. Got David back here. He's wearing one of our Sendgrid t-shirts. Give them a uniform. There is something very powerful. You think about the best teams in the world, athletic, whether it's an athletic team in any sport, military teams, people for whom cohesion and teamwork is absolutely critical to succeeding in the job. They all have a uniform. They always have a uniform, because there's something critical and just visceral about, this is we, not I. This is about the team. I'm playing for the name on the front of the jersey, not on the back. That is just a very simple but powerful message that you can send your team by giving them a uniform. Your uniform can be a t-shirt. It costs us $12 to make them. Not an expensive proposition, but it's really important building culture and being intentional. Never too small to think about culture. Ours, happy, hungry, humble, and honest. Servant leadership, I talked about this this morning, so for those of you who had to sit through it, I won't bore you again with it. But I do believe that for those who are particularly entrepreneurs and founders getting started, you're asking folks to sign up for the impossible, right? Like, I mean, by definition, the odds are all against us whenever we do something entrepreneurial, right? Like, you're kind of asking them to go on this crazy mission with you. And my strong view is simply that it's only fair to ask that of them if you're really going to serve them. Are you going to care about them deeply as people, not just as resources, not headcount? And so think about investing in them and investing the amount of time that's required to make them successful. If you make your team successful, the rest of it will take care of itself. This last one is always a little bit of a downer for folks, but it's an important one. I am a student of history, and it's super important to understand where economic cycles expand and contract and so on. For those of you who lived through the dot-com bust, how many people in the room lived through that? Actually, a fair number, yeah. And then we had the Great Recession, right? I wouldn't argue that you need to plan for a recession. I think you need to be in a position such that if one were to occur, you know what you are going to do. I had a great mentor of mine early in my career, a great CFO, who said to me, it's like, Samir, there's one mistake in business that you cannot come back from. He's like, business is hard. We all make mistakes. We're going to screw up. There's only one that you cannot recover from. You know what that is? I sat there looking at him like, there's only one, really? One you cannot come back from. Running out of cash. Everything else you can come back from. You can pivot, you can make a different decision, change personnel, whatever is required, you can make a different decision around. You cannot come back from running out of cash. So just think through, in what I hope is Plan Z. I hope I don't need to get there. But if that happened, if we went through another one of those big hiccups in the economy as we go through our booms and busts, can I get myself to, and my team, because again, back to the servant leader example from the morning, I believe it is our job, our responsibility is the rudder in the water, the steering, an important set of decisions. One of those places in way you steer is capital structure, financing, do I have, and what's my burn rate relative to my opportunity and cash flow. And if things changed on me, and they can change on a dime, are we ready? Are we prepared? Do we have a plan? Don't have to implement the plan. Not saying you don't take foot off the pedal, just know what you would do if that were to happen. That's it. Those are the five key takeaways that I would offer you. Focus on product buyer fit on your journey to product market fit. Deeply listen to your customer. Think about your voice of the customer. How do I get that message back into my organization and have it drive real change? Make sure that everyone in your organization thinks of recruiting as a critical part of their job. The only way we become a great company is because hiring is so important, and they view it as a privilege, and they know that in any trade-off that the CEO would say, if it's between delivering the project on time or ensuring we go hire the next great set of people, go hire the next great set of people. Slide the project a week. Nothing is more important than recruiting, and you just got to deliver that message enough times until every teammate believes it. Be very intentional about your culture. Get started early. And then lastly, make sure you've got a plan. Don't get burned by your cash burn. All right, I hope that's helpful. I've got, I think I'm allowed some set of minutes for Q&A if anybody has any. I know we started late, so if I need to get the gong, I'm totally okay with that too. I don't know who's up next, but. How important is the technology? The technology is critical. But I would tell you, for me, it's all a byproduct of the other stuff. One of the things of being in the technology world It's so easy to fall in love with the tech. The tech is a means to an end. It's just the way you are solving the problem and the way you are scaling your business. But for me, it's the means, not the ends. And I do believe you've got to have folks who can look around the corner. What tech can we use that's disruptive and new and solve a problem in a unique and novel way? Super important, absolutely critical. But I will tell you, in Sendgrid's journey, the tech has not been the problem. That has never been one of our challenges. And maybe because we have 3 awesome developer founders and they built a great stack from the beginning. But I'm pretty close to the software. It wasn't that. We've been trying to hang on to, catch the tiger by the tail as we've been scaling. I guarantee you, we did not build the optimal and most wonderfully, beautifully architected system from day one. Our founders would all tell you that. We have a great system, but believe me, we've re-architected it and keep refactoring it to make it better. Please.
So you said you have one salesperson for a little company who's in London, and yet you have this fabulous clients. So tell us more about that. How did you do that?
Yeah, the question was, you said we only have one salesperson in London. How does that work? How do you build a business around that? So I should be clear. It's one person outside of the United States. Inside of the United States, we've got a small team. By the way, single digits. All inside sales, and 90% of what they focus on is processing through inbound demand of people who have clicked on the contact sales button. So this is, I talk a lot about this. I could go on for 20 minutes on that topic. I believe that this new business model, I call it SaaS 2.0. It's a better and differentiated way of go-to-market in software. I've been in software for 22 years now. The history of software is you build a software solution for a given need, and then you push it out into the market. You go hire this giant, expensive, and inefficient, mind you, field enterprise sales force. They do 4-legged sales calls, a sales rep and a sales engineer, and they are hoping to find the needle in the haystack, which is the company that has your problem that you're trying to solve, with someone within it who felt the pain so acutely that they went and budgeted for the problem. They have decision-making authority, and they can help you navigate through security and legal hoops for 6 to 12 months. That is a ridiculously inefficient way to get your solution out in the market. What Sendgrid did was we built a great solution to a problem that we believe was broad. And by the way, an easy check for that is, what's the search volume on Google? Are people looking for a solution to this problem? They did, there are, and they pull our product. So we have 55,000 customers. 98% of them never spoke to somebody in Sendgrid sales before becoming a customer. It's a beautiful business model. It is far better than the average go-to-market model that has existed in enterprise software for 2 decades. And I think if you look at companies like Atlassian and Twilio and Shopify and Wix and Sendgrid, you will see dramatically better unit economics from companies that do it our way than the old way. Question in the back.
I know a lot of startups, a lot of tech companies in general will talk about culture and how important culture is. Do you have any particular advice as to how to keep that culture and, not a culture fit part of the interview from becoming more of it's just they're like me, therefore I want to hire them? How do you actually encourage
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a fabulous question, and I will tell you, I don't think we were doing a great job of it in the earlier days. It did veer too much on the side of, could I imagine going and having a drink with this person type stuff. And you're like, that's not who we're hiring and what we're hiring for. So the way that we found to help get around that problem, by the way, it really does become a problem when people are internalizing culture fit as, are they like me? Do I like them? Because by the way, you hire in your own image if you do that, and that, to your point, is the opposite direction of diversity. Diversity of ethnicity, gender, thought, and experience, most importantly. So the way we dealt with that was we got very clear on it's about values. And so culture means a lot of things to a lot of people. I tend to orient and gravitate to the values and the definition of the values. And we got very intentional. We wrote out, what do we mean by happy? What do we mean by hungry? What do we mean by humble and honest? and then devise a set of questions that got at whether or not that person aligned with those values. I'll give you one trivial example. We believe a lot in the humble age, right? We, not I. It's about the team. So you ask a bunch of questions of the candidates that come through. Tell me about your greatest accomplishment, something you're most proud of that you've achieved in your professional career to date. And you literally then just listen. How many times do they use the word we versus I? Very simple, right? And it has nothing to do with whether or not I want to go grab a beer with the guy or gal. It's about, are we aligned on values? Did you spend all your time talking about this awesome team that I got the privilege to be a part of, and we collectively went and did X, and it was awesome, and I loved it, and I love my teammates? If you hear that kind of language, you got a good culture fit, because they're a good values fit, not because they look like us, sound like us, like the same things as us. David, tell me when I have to get the, I don't know, I'll keep going until somebody yanks me off stage. Next one's at 2. I don't know what's in my watch is off. Okay, good. I saw a question down here. Here you go.
So how did you land in your job, and how do I become that?
I could only repeat the first half of that. She asked, how did I land in my job? How I landed in my job, I have been very fortunate to get a number of opportunities throughout my career where somebody was willing to take a bet on me. At the end of the day, that has been true at every juncture in my career, and I've never been qualified to do the job that was the next step in my career development. But I had someone who said, you know what? He's passionate. He wants to go do this. He believes he can, and I believe that guy is going to go run through walls to be successful, which is true. I am absurdly type A. I am hyper competitive. The only thing I hate losing, probably more than I love winning. Like, it is hardwired into me, and I think so. I've just been very lucky to have a set of mentors and people across my career that made a bet on me. You know, I take Sendgrid. I joined as a $40 million startup. Absolutely believed that this was going to be a $1 billion revenue company at some point in time, and you know, it could be a built to last company. It could be a public company. I had never taken a company public. I've never been a public company CEO. They could have easily said, nope, let's go next on the list. Because, by the way, there actually are plenty of folks who have done that. And they didn't. They took a swing on me, which I'm grateful for. Any other questions? Sir?
What's the number one single piece of advice you want to give to any CEOs in this room that are hiring or trying to figure out their culture? What is that one piece of advice that you haven't said already?
Let me think on that. I'd really encourage everyone to think about diversity and inclusion as you are thinking about both hiring and your culture. It is so much easier. It is so much easier to ignore. Let me be on a stage. It is easy to ignore it and say, I am growing fast. I need butts in seats. I need great people. And so we're just going. And you know, we'll worry about this diversity thing at some point down the road. And my strong counsel and ask is that don't do that. Do the hard work. Make sure your pipeline of candidates is 50-50, of diversity candidates to non-diversity candidates. Diversity can come in a lot of different flavors, right? Ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, point of view, experience, I don't care what it is, but diversity. Versus not. And by the way, statistically, it is way harder to get to a 50-50 mix. If you didn't care about it, I guarantee every one of your candidate pipelines would be about 80-20. 80 to the non-diversity. That's just what's out in the talent pool in the population. Not your fault. It's not. I don't believe that it is okay for us as leaders and people building businesses to say, it's too hard. Bullshit. Of course it's too hard. Everything you're doing is too hard. But why stop there? And so get a diversity-driven pipeline. And then by all means, hire the best person for the job. Because you know what? As I was like, being Indian is hardly diverse in software, so that doesn't count. But I will tell you that I have people on my team. I've hired a whole set of executives over the last 3 years. I'll take the two women that are on my team, the African American on my team. The last thing I want them to believe is that they're in that seat because of their diverse backgrounds. Bullshit. I got a diverse pipeline, and I hired the absolute best person for the job. And was diversity a consideration? Sure it was. Did I make sure that they got into the pipeline? I did. But they were the best people for the job, bar none, no debate. And you don't want to have any debate about that when you put people in those seats. But do the hard work when you're recruiting and building your culture to say, diversity matters. I guarantee your teams will perform better if they are diverse than if they are not. Good. Sir.
So sorry, I hit way late on this one, but so I might have touched base on this. How much do you sit and actually think about psychology behind your culture? Like, so like your employees, there's a certain psychology that you can, I don't want to use manipulation in a bad way, kind of manipulate the psychology that's going around in the office to create a positive vibe and a positive culture. For example, like maybe wearing a uniform as opposed to a $12 shirt, and you spent on a $25 shirt that was a nicer shirt, so we could actually go out in public and like, I look pretty good. As opposed to I look like a nerd
Yeah.
who came from, Best Buy.
Yeah.
So like that kind of, that kind of psychology. How much do you pay attention to the psychology while you're building your culture?
So the question was, how much do you think about psychology when building your culture? I think everyone that invests time and energy thinking about culture would say a lot, because it is, at the end of the day, again, back to my previous point of what we're all doing is hard. You're asking people to do, if not the impossible, something very, very hard, right? And that just requires a certain element or level of belief, let's be clear, irrational belief. Irrational belief. When I joined Sendgrid, there was a long list of reasons why that was a really dumb idea for me to do that. But I had this irrational belief. And the psychology is absolutely important because we don't all make decisions with our head only. Like I said, like for me, it was necessary but not sufficient. Had I only looked at the business and the opportunity in 2014, analytically, I would have said no. In fact, I did say no twice. It was because of the heart and the culture, the psychology, the emotions that went with it, that ultimately led me to say, I can't stop thinking about the opportunities that this company has, and I want to go be a part of it. I want to go join that team and see if I can help make a difference getting there. I think psychology has a huge part of it. Yeah. It's very tactical stuff. I'll give you, like, as an example, when I was doing my executive searches, I told the executive search firms, it was just part of this. You're signing up to take this project on. Don't do it if you don't want to get to a 50% pipeline split. And they're like, oh my God, that's so much harder, Smear. I'm like, yep. There's probably another search firm I could go work with if you're not in. That's okay. We have our recruiting team that literally has X% of their time carved out where they are outbounding on LinkedIn or otherwise specifically to diverse candidates and saying, we're going to go do campus recruiting. We're going to go to schools where diversity is a higher percentage of the population. Let's go to Howard. We're going to go find organizations that help with getting diverse candidates into our industry. And so you just got to do the work. It's not hard. It's not impossible. It's not, like we're doing something special or crazy, insightful or unique. You got to do the work. And it is harder. There's no two ways about it. It is harder. But I believe it's worth it. I really do. Please.
When it comes to listening to your customers and using energy like 50 at a time, how
Yeah.
much do you take what they say into account to create a new part of the business? Maybe I've heard other mentors also give the different gas.
I build the faster horse. So part of for me the customer validation process is it certainly starts off by interviewing and asking, and you're literally looking for body language, like because you're looking for pain first and foremost. What you're looking for, the first step of it is there enough pain that I should go solve this? Because there are plenty of things that are annoying, but are they actually going to go write me a check for it on the back end if I solve it? That's a different level of pain. So if you see them like get animated when they're describing their pain, like they lean in to the table or the conversation, I'm like, and yeah, and they do that kind of stuff, then you're like, okay, I'm onto something here, right? And I'm sure Henry Ford would be like, there are people that said, I wish I could get from here to there a lot faster. So validating the problem is super important, and I do think you do that with lots and lots of customer interviewing. And we do, and others can debate whether or not, I mean, for me, I think it's the right answer. Maybe others could debate it. I don't like guessing at whether or not the thing that we envisioned to solve said pain is the optimal way to solve it. And so we build prototypes, and you do this fast. It's not build a whole system or a whole product or this beautifully, elegantly architected thing. Wireframes, draw pictures, whiteboard. And take that back to them, all 30 and 50 of them, the ones who leaned in and said, yeah, this is really annoying. And if they look at that and say, and they get energized and they're excited, like, yeah, could you also do blah? Boy, I tell you, then you just know before you set down the journey that you're onto something. And you could do, I don't think Steve Jobs ever did a prototype of like, here's the iPhone, folks, what do you think? Before he launched it to the world, like that's Steve Jobs. So if you're Steve Jobs, by all means, do that. I am not. I don't think I think that is a Six Sigma event. And so I think getting a prototype solution to the thing you were trying to solve and then going back to them and saying, hey, what do you think? Is this about right? And just gauging their reactions. And to your point, and you do have to handicap it some, because you'll always have some, the thing about doing 30 to 50 is you'll get some that'll take you down some like random tangent. You're like, okay, I do need to discount that one or that theme, or that's for this vertical, or it's too niche over here. But the mainline use case is the other 90% of the people I talk to. So that's how I think about it. I think it is worth really listening to those customers and the bet on, I think I found a problem and I'm going to create the solution, spend the money, get the team on board, build the solution, and then put it out there and see if I was right. I just think that's pretty high beta. I think that's high risk.
My business model, I've been told that I need to educate my customers that I get that are educated, but did you find that Sendgrid needed to educate those people that haven't tripped yet? They don't realize that it's a problem that they're solving. So what tools do you use to reach out to educate some of the clients that haven't dealt with those issues that you're solving?
Yeah. The question was about how do you deal with this scenario where there are customers that don't know that they have a problem that you can solve yet. And that is, I would tell you, is a harder stage in the process, in the journey. Like timing is everything, right, in markets. And I would say Sendgrid was fortunate. It was a couple of years into the cloud movement. Developers, where software is eating the world, and there's this huge tailwind. Developers had increasing power. They could put a credit card down and get a service, and they had the problem, and they knew they had the problem, and they went and searched for it. So we definitely did a lot of great things in terms of marketing and getting the word out and so on, but we weren't evangelizing the market on the problem. And so when you are in that state, and I've done startups where that was true, my strongest piece of advice to you when you have to evangelize into a new market that is still young is charge a shit ton of money. I mean, just straight up, look, It's all about unit economics. And so if it's going to cost you a lot of money to go and educate the market, to get into these sales cycles, and you'll spend it's a 6 to 12 month cycle because you got to spend the first 6 months educating them. You cannot afford to be doing that for, like we do, our entry price is $9.95 a month. You can't do that. It's got to be and push the boundary of how much you're willing to ask people for. At my first job at Trilogy, we wouldn't do a deal if it was less than $1 million a year. That was just our minimum because you knew the unit economics aren't going to work because what we were doing was disruptive and it required evangelizing. It was just hard. So I would encourage you, make sure, just see, is the problem big enough that you can charge a lot of money for? And or if not, if it just structurally is not a problem that will derive that where you can charge high 6, 7 figures, then keep your costs low while you scale and the market matures and gets educated. Because otherwise you end up upside down. Because you can burn some amount of money, but you can't do it forever. My 2 cents for what? My 2 rupees. 5 more minutes? Okay, sure. Any other questions? These are fun. In the back.
So 2 years ago, Sendgrid had a 100% free subscription plan. At what point why do you think they switched to a freemium or there's a minimum payment instead of trying to attract all these free customers? Was it part of the plan or was it?
Yeah, no, I mean, the question in the back was, for the life of the company from 2009 up until about 12 months ago, Sendgrid had a freemium model. If you sent less than 40,000 emails a month, you could be on our platform sending free forever. And about this time last year, we converted to a free trial model that still has a freemium element on the back end. Frankly, I'm not sure we're doing as good of a job as we need to, that people understand that that freemium element is still in there. But fundamentally, it was because we were having, we just weren't asking people to convert and pay a very nominal $9.95 a month that allows us to keep doing what we're doing. And if the customer tried it out and wasn't ready, again, you think about the people we're serving, like a developer with a new startup idea, they may not know whether the idea is going to work within our 30-day trial window. So what we did is on the back of the 30-day trial, we said you can just drop into what we call a developer sandbox, and it's still that same kind of freemium forever. Within that, just stay within this threshold, and you can keep going. I don't think we've done a good enough job of that. But fundamentally, because we effectively have like an e-commerce business, right? It's a self-service. People come to the site, and you're trying to get them through the funnel. The clear economic advantage was to say, ask people after the trial for the order, effectively, and anybody in here has ever done sales, there's a moment in time when you have to ask for the order. You have to ask for the, I'm hopefully conferring some value, I gotta ask for the order and get something back. And if the answer is no, then hopefully they drop into the sandbox because they're not ready. But we, as a business, it's far more scalable and sustainable to do it with a free trial where you get more people saying, yeah, okay, fine, I'll give you the $10 a month. It's 2 lattes. Other questions? Sir.
Not necessarily about advice for entrepreneurs, there's a bunch of entrepreneurs here growing companies. It's maybe an opportunity if you put a plug in for your new marketing platform
Yeah.
that tailor really well for entrepreneurs.
I appreciate the commercial opportunity. I appreciate it. So we, as I mentioned, we started with these developer use cases. Over the last 18 months, we introduced a new part of the platform that is not just the API that a developer plugs into the back of the application, but is actually a SaaS application, a UI that a marketer would use to design their email campaign. Like imagine it's a template editor and they pick their photos and what's the call to action, what's the subject line, I'm going to A/B test it. Because all of our customers were asking for it. I've been in software a couple decades now. I've never seen a product launch like this. We have nearly 9,000 paying customers using this thing that we launched 18 months ago. It's one of the fastest product launches I've ever seen. The business is doubling year over year. It's awesome. and we're just getting started on it. So if any of you that have to do promotional email, please go take a look at it. It's a great, beautiful, simple, easy to use application, and it happens to sit on top of our what I would argue is the best. We send 1 billion emails a day, so you don't have to worry about, is it going to scale, is it reliable? It's got 4.5 nines of reliability. It's a great platform. So if you're doing anything with emailing, promotional, and marketing stuff at scale, it's a great, and it's super, super affordable. Very, very inexpensive because of our developer roots. It's kind of like AWS poking fun at Oracle, like, yeah, sure, come join the cloud. We'll see how you like it. They're like Amazon. Amazon is used to living in razor-thin margins as their business forever. Oracle, you're used to living in worlds with profits like this. You are not going to come play well in the cloud computing world, and sure enough, they were right. We have the same benefit. We can come into this email marketing category because we're used to serving developers on at a price point and margins like this, where to us, what we can go get from a marketer is factors more than a developer. But by the way, is factors less than the marketer, than their alternatives. So it's a great place to come in and disrupt what is a 10 or 20-year-old market, which we're having fun doing. 2 o'clock. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a great Denver Startup Week.